So after a year in the Europa League doldrums, Liverpool are back in the Champions League, and the first of those Anfield nights in this competition for this season comes against Bologna on Wednesday night. And of course, full focus will be on that. This is an important tournament for Liverpool, as it always is. They are the most successful European team in English football, aren't they? And they want to keep that reputation up by going as far as possible. And of course, you want to put on a show in this first Anfield game in this competition this season. But while all the full focus will be on that, there are a couple of other things in the back of Arne Slot's mind, I think, coming into this one. And the first of those is the fact that Liverpool are in a run of a lot of fixtures in a short space of time, 7 games in 21 days. And of course, quickly coming on the back of this game is a game against Crystal Palace away from home, that dreaded 12:30 kickoff. So these are things that Arne Slot has got to think about coming into this one, and managing his players' fitness and making sure he doesn't pick up any further injuries. So it is a real big consideration. So coming into this one, how much can he change? I mean, one thing that's going in his favour is the fact that Bologna's form isn't fantastic coming into this one. They've won 1, drawn 5 and lost 1 so far. So they look like they're quite a difficult side to beat, but equally they're not a side who can massively threaten and should be able to hurt Liverpool, particularly with the Anfield factor involved. That home advantage is so big for Liverpool. So I think weighing up the two considerations, the fact, the fitness of the players, but also the fact that this is one of the more straightforward fixtures that Liverpool will get in the Champions League this season. My take on this is that Arne Slot might need to make a few changes. Now, we're definitely not talking League Cup level of changes. I mean, he made 9 changes for that game against West Ham, and I don't expect anything like that, because this is, of course, the Champions League, and you do have to show the competition and your opposition some respect. But I think there might be a few tweaks to the starting lineup, and so I've gone through the first 11 that I think should be picked for this one, and I'm going to, as ever, give my reasonings behind that. And I will, of course, start, as ever, with the goalkeeper, which is, I think, a really, really easy one. Of course, it's not the League Cup, so I don't think we'll be seeing Quansah Kelleher for this one. Alisson is back to fitness, so expect him to be in between the sticks for this one. That's a massive no-brainer. And I'll move quickly into the defence. Now, starting at right back now, there is an argument here that Conor Bradley hasn't played an awful lot of football this season. Is this an opportunity to rotate with it being a home game? But for me, I think because it's still the Champions League and Trent is so influential in possession, isn't he? I think you've got to start him in this one. I mean, yes, you've got to factor in he's played a lot of football in this period. He will be involved at Crystal Palace, absolutely no question about that. But I think if there's in an ideal world, could you give Trent Alexander-Arnold 60 minutes here, bring on Conor Bradley then to rest his legs and get him ready for Crystal Palace? I think that would be the perfect scenario, is that you get 60 minutes of Trent at his absolute best. Hopefully put up a decent enough scoreline for Liverpool to see it out, and then Conor Bradley, you absolutely trust him, don't you, to come in and perform that role. So for me, I'm starting Trent at that right back. And now going into the centre halves, I am going to make a change there. Of course, one of those is going to be Virgil van Dijk. I think, again, it's Champions League. You've got to start, your first home game of this period. You need your captain. And I think one thing you would say about Liverpool's centre halves at times, and particularly in games that they dominate at Anfield, is that at times really Van Dijk can be smoking a pipe and have his slippers on at times in these games, and can really kind of take it easy. So shouldn't put too much load on him as a centre half. He doesn't have to get up and down a lot, does he? He can usually manage the games like this. So I'd like to see Virgil van Dijk in there, because I just think he's too important to leave out, and he can, as I say, manage his way through these games. But alongside him, I am going to make a change. Now, Konate has been absolutely fantastic this season, but I think, and he has been available regularly as well, which is, something we must mention, because that has been a criticism of him in the past. His fitness record hasn't been fantastic, but you need to keep that going, don't you? You need to protect him. You need to make sure that workload doesn't get too much, and that you don't start tempting an injury to come on. And as I say, this is a home game against a slightly lesser side. I think this is an opportunity to maybe make that change, particularly because you've got Jarell Quansah waiting in the wings, who we only saw him in that first half of the first Premier League game, didn't we? And then only seen him against West Ham since. But he's worth a lot more than that, and he's a player who could easily come in a Champions League game and show what he's all about. So I'd like to see that to keep up his sharpness, to rest Konate. And I do think that keeping up sharpness point is important, because as the games keep coming thick and fast, and they will continue to do so the other side of the international break, having the likes of Quansah ready to jump in and at full fitness is very, very important. So that is one of the reasons I would like to see him start. Now, And just finish up in the defence at left back, in another one where I would like to make a change now. Andy Robertson was in training today. He did get that little... he got caught, didn't he, late on in the Wolves game with some question marks over whether he might have picked up an injury in that one. Thankfully, he's not. He was in training today, so absolutely available. But there's a few factors here. I think, look, he had an injury-hit season last year, didn't he? You've got to manage his minutes and be careful with him on that basis. Don't want him to struggle again this time. He is 30 now. And he gets through an awful lot of work during games, doesn't he? You know, he's up and down that flank, so energetic, and puts a lot into it. So I just think it's an opportunity to rotate. And we saw in the last Champions League game away in Milan that Arne Slot trusted Kostas Tsimikas. So I would expect, again, an Anfield game that he would be willing to trust him again to start in this one. So that is the pick I've gone with, Kostas Tsimikas at left back. Now, moving into midfield, I don't think this is an area where Arne Slot feels he has an awful lot of options. So, for example, starting in the holding midfield role where Ryan Gravenberch is, Endo is the alternative there, but you know, we haven't seen many signs that he really wants to use him often so far this season. Only seen him in the League Cup, really, not a lot, even as a substitute in the Premier League. So I really do think it's just going to be Ryan Gravenberch there. Similarly, alongside him, Curtis Jones, you could say, is maybe pushing, but again, you know, does he want to make that change here? Would he rather go down the route of maybe using McAllister here and then bringing him off around 60 if he can? Again, with McAllister, I think that is a key concern. I think he is someone who runs an awful lot. He always seems to catch a bad challenge in every game, and so every time he's on the pitch, you feel like you're tempting fate with him. So for me, he would be the absolute priority. If he does start alongside Gravenberch in that kind of deeper two, he'd be the priority for me to protect and get off as early as possible if Liverpool can build up a lead, and that is maybe where you bring in Curtis Jones. But I think the fact that they've got such a good partnership, they're so good at controlling games, I think Slot will want to keep that going. We'll see it as too important really to mess around with for this game. And just ahead of him in that final midfield role, there's no Harvey Elliott, is there? So really options in that sort of attacking midfield role that have been thinned by that Harvey Elliott injury. So it has to really be Dominic Szoboszlai for me now. I know he's had a bit of criticism recently for his form, and he hasn't been fantastic in possession, but he is still really important out of possession for me. And I think a game like this at Anfield, where Liverpool you would expect will dominate the ball, maybe that could be really good for him. If you can get a goal, get an assist, get something that will boost his confidence in that final third, then hopefully this could be a really good night for him. And again, maybe he's another one you want to protect with Harvey Elliott being injured, but we'll just have to see how the game goes. Now, moving forward into the front line on the right wing, I've gone with Mohamed Salah. No Federico Chiesa for this one, unfortunately. He's picked up an injury. Arne Slot revealed in his press conference. That means that Chiesa is going to miss Bologna, but he may also miss the Crystal Palace game. It's kind of touch and go around that one, so we'll have to see. And I think he is at the moment the natural replacement for Salah. So if he isn't available, I think maybe use Mohamed Salah again. Is he one that you need to protect? Is he one that you do 60, maybe even slightly less, slightly more? You know, I think he's one should be prioritised because I think he stayed on the pitch an awful lot recently when, you know, again, age is advancing, injuries are more likely as that happens. Really need to be careful with him. So if he does start, I would like to see him protected at some point and maybe brought off. Now, I'll move to the other wing now. The left wing, of course, Luis Diaz has been pretty much first choice there and playing absolutely fantastically so far this season. But I think, look, you've got Cody Gakpo there waiting for games. He is also seemingly in the form of his life, has looked absolutely fantastic under Slot. And I just think if you've got options like that who are that good, it's basically a like-for-like replacement. You lose nothing and there's no real drop-off there, then why not use it? Keep Gakpo in form, keep his confidence up. Hopefully he can get some goals and hopefully he can keep up the form he's been showing recently. So for me, that one is a little bit of a no-brainer to bring in Gakpo there, give Diaz a rest before bringing him back for Crystal Palace. And that leaves the final spot, which is that centre-forward role. And of course, Diogo Jota has been the first choice so far this season, but I think this should be an opportunity for Darwin Núñez. Diogo Jota has missed the last couple of training sessions due to a little foot injury, a knock that he picked up against Wolves. That should be okay and should be settled down in time for him to be part of the squad against Bologna, but why take the risk with using him when you've got someone like Núñez who's just chomping at the bit to come in and have an opportunity to score goals and show why he should be in the team. So I think that's a really good opportunity to bring him in, and I've picked him as my starting centre forward. So that completes my starting 11 for this game against Bologna. As ever, do let me know in the comments what you think. Is this selection right? Have I made too many changes, not enough changes? What would you do differently? I want you to leave your starting 11 in the comments. Always interested to read those. And as ever, going to leave it there and ask if you can like and subscribe. Always hugely appreciated. And of course, I will be at Anfield tomorrow evening to cover the match, and we'll be straight on to give my post-match thoughts and reflections. And hopefully, again, we're talking about another Liverpool win in the Champions League. See you then.